Hey guys, we're back with yet another episode in this hiring and retaining DJ staff series we're in. This is now episode 7, and we're going to be talking about training. This one might go longer than our 5 to 10 minute threshold just because this is a lot. But we're going to try to hit on this. I'll take the first crack at it and kind of talk through how our method is, just because I think we've got more guys than you have. So we've been through it a little bit more. And ours is a little bit more in depth too, I think, just from the standpoint of having so much trial and error in the beginning. Like, we know how to work our way through it. So the best thing I can say is have an orientation. The orientation sets the expectations right up front. You can always refer back to that orientation, so that in case there's anything that is misunderstood, you're like, hey, we talked about this then. So and everybody was in the room then too. So there wasn't anything. And what we found is through the orientation, there may be people who drop out and they don't make it to even the first training day, because we want to make sure that I tell them this: we want to be as fully transparent as possible. I don't hide any numbers. Like, if you ever want to see our books, let me know. I'm totally open book in that regard. And I feel like that should be the way we carry out our trainings and getting people on board and stuff too. Like, there shouldn't be any secrets and any of that kind of stuff out there. Everybody's on the same pay scale. Like, there's nobody who's like, ooh, we've got somebody who's making 30 times as much or whatever. We're fully transparent. So I can't harp on enough how important that orientation is to set the expectations there before getting them started in the training. And we always try to gift them as well during that orientation with something. For us, it's shirts. We have a little moleskin book that we give them to keep notes in. And if I'm really bold and I feel really good about them, I might even get them cards to start with, because they're cheap. I mean, if they didn't even stay past that first day, it almost forces them to have some skin in the game too. It's $30. You know what I mean? For 500 cards, I get them from Yacht Prince or something. They look good and everything like that, but that makes them feel like they're officially a part of the fold, even though they haven't even done one day of training. And then on an overview on our training, it's 18 sessions. The first 10 are MC driven. We just feel like that's the easiest concept to grasp. And it's also, to us, one of the most important against our competition is the fact that we do such a great job on the emceeing front. And it's not that we're being cheesy. It's just that we're super polished. They've gone through as many scenarios as we can put them through. And then after that, we tackle the music and the mixing portion. And at the end of it, so there's 18 sessions. We try to do 2 a week, so it ends up being about 9 weeks. The goal is that they are feeling like they've graduated. And we don't do a diploma thing or anything like that, but we do make it a big deal to let them know they're in the fold. They now are attending our all-team meetings, which we do quarterly at least, and we'll celebrate them that day. Because, I mean, going through 9 weeks where it's just a grind at times, it's important. So last thing I'll say about the training on our end is that we actually try to do this not at our office. We work out a deal with a venue in town. We do it at different venues so we don't feel like they have to give up their ballroom. But because we're doing it in February where there's slow season, we'll pick a weeknight. We pre-schedule these times. So we tell them at orientation, listen, you cannot miss, even if you're on your deathbed. You got to be here, because we have worked out an arrangement and we can't get those days back. Now, truth be told, could we get it if we really asked? Yes, but I don't want to be asking these people for different days. But that way, it's not in our office. They're getting it in a ballroom experience at a venue that we typically frequent. And it just, especially for the emceeing part, they're getting more comfortable so that the first one in a ballroom isn't like their first time ever being in there. Hopefully they've gotten a little bit of more comfortability, because that's the goal. By the end of the training, our goal is that they feel so comfortable that it's like they've done 2 or 3 of these before, and they feel like they've got this under their belt. So it's not like a nervousness. So it's already going to be nerve-wracking as it is anyways, but we want to limit that as much as possible. So that was long-winded, but that's kind of an overview of our training. What's yours look like, Chris?
Yeah, actually ours sounds very similar. So once you get through that internship period that I talked about in the last episode, then you get vetted into what we call Cutmaster Camp. And we call it camp instead of school, because nobody likes school. Everybody loves going to camp.
Yeah.
So we call it Cutmaster Camp, and camp consists of 1 to 2 days a week, just like you. It's usually about 1 to 2 hours. On day 1, is usually of the 2-day week is usually some sort of skills work. So we always do MC training at that's the one thing we hit at every single session. Even if it's just 15 to 20 minutes going through a script or something like that. But we always hit MC training at every single one. We feel that's super important. But day one of camp is usually a skill day, whether it's mixing, learning the gear and the equipment. Day two for us is going through the history of music. So if you have not looked at that yet for a part of your training with your crew, that's Mike Walter, and he did the history of music series. Go grab it, make your guys watch it. And I think it's 7 hours total of footage. So that's why we pick one of those days a week to go through all the different years, the genres, the eras, and make sure our guys are super familiar with all that history of music. And then basically from that point on, while we're also training, we will sometimes get these guys out into the field as well. So they're just observing, helping set up, tear down. They're roadies for us while they're going through camp. And then, it's kind of funny. We probably need to do something more official. Like, okay, you're in. I love your idea. I'm probably going to steal some of those ideas that you brought up to be official. One of the things that we do at the very beginning of camp, I give them the Newmark DJ2Go controller. It's the small little controller. It's got EQing, pads, everything that you need to get up and started with Serato. And so we use that as their starting point. And I give that to them, tell them you're going to use this to practice. And then at the very end, when we're done with with Cutmaster Camp, I tell them that's yours to keep. So it's about an $80 investment if you get the controller and the little case that goes with it. And now they've got a nice little backup piece of gear when they go, in addition to when they go out and buy their, the big boy controllers and that sort of thing. So, but I definitely need to do something a little bit more official at the end. It seems like our guys just they go through camp and then they just start swimming with the crew and they're going.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I like the idea of the controller thing too. I think I'm gonna borrow that idea as well because that's a good one. It shows you have skin in the game. Like you're committed to them, and they feel like they're to have a piece of gear that they are on their own time trying to figure out. That's awesome because then they can you can assess where they're at with things and how they are into it.
And we actually use that Newmark DJ2Go for our ceremonies. So it's a great, if you guys haven't used that and you're looking for just a little controller that gives you pretty much everything you want and need for tactile controlling and mixing, it's a great piece of gear for like $60-$70.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get that. That's a good thing. How many? So you talked about the different sessions. Do you have like a finite number of like this is how many they have to go through? Like, do you have like a syllabus, if you will, or is it just by feel?
No, we do. We've got a syllabus. I can't remember exactly. I want to say it's either 8 to 9 weeks of 2-day sessions. So it sounds like we have about the same number of sessions as you do. It's like 18 or so.
If you had to say one area is beyond like just the general emceeing or mixing, is there one piece that you feel like this part is super important to your training process, like a specific skill that you feel like is, whether it could be within emceeing and saying like the grand entrance or just something that in particular that for you is like you key in on? Is there anything like that?
We do a grand entrance every single time. To me, I think that's the most important thing, and I established that from day one of MC training. Like, you will come in and we will go through a grand intro every single time. I just feel for our events, that's the very first time that people see you. That's your face. That you're putting your stamp on that event, and things either go one direction or the other, I feel, from that point, and you being able to grasp and capture an audience, which is super important. It makes my job as mixing, which is what most of these guys come into us, what they want to do, right? They want to be a DJ. Like, they want to mix and scratch.
Right.
It is going to make that part of your night so much easier when you are able to get out in front of an audience and just capture them from the get-go. So we make that important in the training.
Let me ask you another question. What is your favorite part from the teacher standpoint of the training? Is there anything that you just like, I don't know, you look forward to in the training aspect at all? Any
For me, it's actually, I think the teaching of the mixing and when they get to learn how to beat matching. And that's, I know there's a lot of people out there that'll talk, you don't need to beat match and this and that. You know what? So that's our company. You got to beat match.
Right.
Like,
Same.
That's just a skill that for us is essential. It's super important. And I love it. So when the guys, part of our training is they have to go on and create a Mixcloud account and they have to put their mixes on Mixcloud. And that is a huge step for your guys in putting their stuff out there for the public,
right?
You know, and there's nothing like, I think it's such a great feeling to see our guys come up with me and go, I got my mix up. Like, you got to hear it. Like, and it's just, I feel like that's the first real piece of, that's like their first asset that they're super proud of when they get that first mix on their own out there. So
yeah, that's awesome. I'll tell you, for me, the thing that I love about the training process from the teacher standpoint is to see the progression. Like, there have been guys that got on the microphone early on, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a long process. And then when we get to we actually do a final halfway through on the emceeing side to like a mock event, basically. And the last time we went through this, the person who I thought was the weakest, like, crushed it because they knew they needed to put in a ton of work, and they like really went for it. And I just was like, dude, like, I cannot believe this guy just crushed it this way. And it just made me super proud, because if you would have looked at him from week 1 to week 11, it was night and day. In fact,
and I'm sure you guys do what we do, or you probably film them, right? Like, you take video.
But we should probably do it week 1. Now it's making me think we do it like week 4 or 5. But just to see,
I do it right off the bat.
That's a good idea. We probably should do that. But that's one of my favorite parts of the training, is to see that progression, because it's sometimes it's just unbelievable to see like the progression of it, you know?
So I'll go and show, because sometimes our guys will come in and I've already, after gone through the intern period and that sort of thing, they'll be familiar with some of our crew. And so when they come into camp, I might even go back and show them and say, look, this was Carl on day 1 doing an intro. After you've seen him and you've gone to his events and you see what he looks like now, this is what he came in and looked like. And they'll just be floored. Like, it's not even the same person.
Yeah, totally. Totally. I did want to make one mention too, that similar to you, I didn't mention it on mine, but we call ours, we don't call it camp, but we do call it classroom training, because it is. That's what they come in and I wouldn't say they're sitting at a chair necessarily, but it's like going into the office, if you will. But we actually do it at a venue that we're at, that we have a partnership with. And then the other thing is we have in the field training is what we call it. So they're still doing the same thing. On this side, they are getting paid now. And that way they're getting 2 pieces of the pie. The in-classroom training is non-paid, but the outside in the field training is paid. So they are getting some dollars in their pocket. So they're not just giving up, potentially 3 days in their week for nothing, if that makes sense.
Same with us. Okay. Our Cutmaster camp is not paid, and then they go into. I stole this from one of our guys, Bao. He works at the Albuquerque Police Department, and they call it OJT. So that's what we called it, on the job training. So
that's good. That's good.
Same things. It's the same thing as your field training. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I think we went over that pretty well. Obviously, if you guys have more questions in depth on what a syllabus looks like, or more like questions as to what each of these training sessions are, reach out to either of us. We'd be glad to help you out. We're going to be back with another episode, and then upcoming one, we're going to talk about the employee manual and also just training materials in general, which for us is going to probably harp on that orientation part I mentioned earlier. So we'll be back with you here shortly.